Okay, we should be live now. If you are here, please introduce yourself in the chat, even if you don't really want to ask a question. Just love to know that there are folks listening. And I will introduce our special guest in just a moment. I'm not going to give her a whole lot of introduction. I'm just going to let her tell you her story and about her work. And so let's do this. Okay, folks, welcome. This is API Case Files Live, and I appreciate your cooperation there. Tonight's guest is Rachel Bond. Now, I ran into Rachel for the first time last November in Crofton, Maryland, at the Mysteries of Space and Sky Conference, hosted by Help People get in touch with her. Now, what Rachel is, and I'm going to tell you my very limited understanding of what she does, and then I'll let her correct or improve on that. Greetings from the Space Coast of Florida. Well, thank you for letting us know you're here. Philip English, at Philip English. Yes, well, Philip, if you have any questions, just put a Q in front of him and we'll expanding frontiers research. I know those characters. They're good people. We're very fond of expanding frontiers research. And anyway, so Rachel is here on Zoom right now, and I'm going to bring her in about 10 seconds, and I'll let her tell you. But she is a psychotherapist, a licensed psychotherapist working in Maryland. And you can read her Psychology Today profile. You can look her up, Rachel Bond, B-O-N-D. And I'm going to just bring her on now and going to let her tell you everything that you want to know about what she does. So let me just bring up the Zoom call. Hello, Rachel. How are you?
Hello, Paul. I'm well. How are you?
Good. Now, Rachel, let's just start with the short description of who is Rachel Bond and what does she do? How does she help people? And, we can go from there.
Okay. Well, first I want to say thank you, Paul, for having me on tonight. It's an honor to be part of the work that you are doing. I am a licensed certified social work with populations that have anomalous, paranormal, kind of outside of the norm type of experiences. I don't know if every listener would be familiar with the term experiencer, but
that's a term I use. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we run into those folks, and I tell my little story. My first encounter with an experiencer was about 14 years ago, and I was expecting a kook. So I thought, well, okay, this is not the stereotype I have had in my head for a long time. And, but this guy probably, I'm not well qualified to help him deal with what's bothering him. And none of my other colleagues were either. So, I kept saying, we need to find folks who can work with these guys and help them take the very strange experiences they've had that they don't understand and help them integrate them into their lives so they don't feel like they're living two lives.
Right. Yeah.
Like one life that's very strange and one life that's full of love and family and friendship and work and that's a big challenge, a big ask from anybody. And not everybody's like that, but they have this guy, and I've met some other people since then, salt of the earth people, not people that belonged in a mental institution, not people who were unable to function in life, But so you probably have a lot more experience of that than I do. But tell me more about how you work. What's the? I know that everybody's unique, right? Everybody has their own
Sure.
their own. How do you approach this? I mean, tell us more about the general. I
Sure.
don't expect you to give us any details about a particular case, but
Yeah.
right. How do you approach it?
I mean, that's a great question. And like what you're saying is, many people that have anomalous experiences have regular jobs. They're regular people with regular lives. And, um, you know, I'm a trauma specialist, so I work with people that have non-paranormal experiences and people that do. And my approach is holistic. So I do mind, body, spirit integration. So I'm doing a mixture of cognitive behavioral therapy and existential therapy. So it's talk therapy also combined with somatic. And soma is a Greek word for body. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is working with the nervous system because ultimately, with experiencers, like anyone else, we're treating symptoms. And, I can get more into like what symptoms might we see from someone that is an experiencer.
Yeah, I'd
But
be interested in that.
yeah, yeah. So that's kind of what we're doing is we're working with mind, body, and spirit to help people make meaning out of their experience. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
prescriptive when it comes to what is it. The clinical question really isn't about proving what happened. It's helping people process the experience without fear or
Right.
stigma.
You're not a UFO investigator.
Right.
You're trying to help people make sense of things in their lives,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And fit it in. Now, yeah, tell me more about the somatic uh, therapy. What kind of work is that? Do they like? Is it lying on the floor and
Might be. It might
uh,
be. So somatic could be anything. So I do breath work,
uh
like when, you have experienced the type of fear that comes with powerlessness,
mm-hmm.
um, it is a resource to be able to anchor into your breath because no matter where you are in the world, you would have your breath.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would be doing certain breathing techniques to reset the vagus nerve, and so that's responsible for the stress response. Um, Mindfulness meditations. I also might do in session guided meditations or guided visualizations. I might do butterfly tapping, um, any type of uh, specific movement that can help, like release trapped emotions in the body, because trauma is not just the event that happened, it's also the way that the story is stuck within your nervous system.
Oh, right. Yeah. So have you worked with people like who have trauma from non-anomalous things like combat veterans or?
I do. Um, it's just a trigger warning, but the experiencers that Dr. Mack was researching describe the term mind rape. So that
Hmm.
the violation that comes with not being able to consent to, being we don't need to get too deep into it, but abductees like not being able to consent to having the experiences that they've had, and there is that sense of powerlessness that comes with it. So yes, to answer your question, I work with a range of different types of trauma survivors, and the interesting thing about experiences is that they also have symptoms that are very similar to trauma survivors.
Hmm. Well, okay. I have seen some of these experiencers who have a range of emotional responses to what's happened
Mhm.
to them. Some in some cases, uh, but there's the idea of something very fearful happening always seems to come up. Um, the one couple in the Upper Midwest that I spoke to, they both had shared some of these experiences. She believed she was under some kind of spiritual assault,
Mm-hmm.
and felt that prayer was her answer to coming at them, and he responded to it by going and getting his hunting rifle.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so he definitely felt under attack, but
Sure, sure.
he was not. He didn't have the same interpretation as she did, even though they had very similar description of what had
Mm-hmm.
occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the That was a really interesting. Uh, this is how treatment for, well, this person uses the phrase UAP exposures, but anomalous experience parallels treatment for trauma and where it differs. Do you?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah, where the overlap is.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, and that's a great question because there's something called post-abduction syndrome. I don't know if you're
Mm-hmm.
familiar with the term, but it's not officially recognized. This was a term that Richard Haynes, a former NASA scientist who became in UFO research, published a paper on abductions. And what he explored with similar symptoms is with post-traumatic stress, we're looking at flashbacks, negative thought patterns, mood changes, avoidance of anything that reminds someone of anything related to the trauma, hyperarousal, so that's like always being armored and on guard, dissociation, being checked out of the body. But so all of those overlap, but specifically where the difference is in the form of ontological shock. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
I've heard it. Um, I think I know what it means, but yeah, go give us some more
Sure,
elaboration.
sure. So it comes from the word ontology. So ontos is being, and
Mm-hmm.
it is the study of being. And it is when you are confronted with something that is so outside of your idea of what reality should be, that you
Mm-hmm.
are then forced to question your entire worldview and your identity and your understanding of reality. Um, and so the experiencers are encountering another layer of trauma in the sense of not being believed, not being taken seriously, and at risk of being stigmatized, pathologized, and labeled crazy. So I think as a mental health practitioner, I want to kind of draw attention to the fact that the DSM was written in 1952 and humans have experienced it. It's something that's potentially new, but really it's a medical model that has yet to be expanded. Um, and with all of that being said, so we have the post-abduction syndrome, which has the symptoms that I listed. And then there's also for experiencers, this is both for people that have either um, been in physical situations with non-human intelligence, NHI, or that they've seen something like orbs. And I'm not sure how familiar your viewers are with like the range of non-human intelligence and what is is
Probably my viewers are
yeah.
far more
I would
familiar
say,
than
yeah,
the average person on the street.
I would think so. Um, so experiencers are also at risk of amnesia, of time loss,
Mm-hmm.
of unexplained bruises, marks, even we could explore missing pregnancies. So there are physical symptoms that come from encounters with non-human intelligence, as well as psychological symptoms.
Mhm. Well, okay. Can we back up just a little, though? I've got some other question here. Is how you personally got into? I mean, you were
Mm.
working with trauma people who were survivors of assault and family violence. But how did you get into working with experiencers?
Um, Good question. So it started around, oh gosh, I would only say within the past year, actually, um, that I started to see a pattern, especially with my more severe cases, that they had symptoms that fell outside of the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something called like the default mode network, or actually, let's talk about like predictive processing within the brain. And what trauma does is it disrupts the brain's ability to continue, because we're predicting reality. Our brain is saying, okay, I think that the sky is going to be blue and the grass is going to be green, and I'm expecting these things to happen as I walk outside. And when we encounter something that causes this ontological shock, it starts to tear at our worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have noticed a correlation between trauma survivors who are more likely to experience the anomalous. And when I worked for the US Navy, there was a lot of rumors at the time. This was around the time the UAP congressional hearings were happening. And, that piqued my interest, uh, because who doesn't like to think about space and something bigger than ourselves? But it wasn't until this last year that I really got more serious and involved. I think because I had some of my own strange experiences that I
Oh,
went looking for answers. And maybe we can do a part two of a podcast on what that all is. But that is how I got started. And it just was research from there to say, okay, well, what is it? What do we do with it?
okay. Got a couple more people that you logged into the chat. Hello, folks. I won't mention everyone, but thank you for letting us know you're there. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. I've got a few questions that were submitted before the show by people who couldn't be here live. Um, Let me just go back to one or two of those and see. This is one that's kind of technical at least from my perspective, but should there be a specific diagnostic code in the DSMV for UAP exposure related trauma, or does that further stigmatize witnesses?
Mm. I think different mental health practitioners would answer that question differently. My personal philosophy is more geared towards depathologizing.
Mm-hmm.
I see trauma symptoms not as character flaws, but as adaptations to an event that happened. So it
Makes
depends
sense.
on, yeah, it depends on how you want to view diagnoses in the first place. What I work with my clients on is the label is there to help us understand, but the label is not an identity.
Right. And yeah, and there's a risk, I suppose, if saying, well, somebody, you've got UAP syndrome or something like that,
Right.
then they start seeing things through that lens,
Hmm.
uh, and that's not how you're going to help them. Uh, so the okay, well, this one is very general. I don't really know even what it means exactly, but uh, it's a fair question. Where are the boundaries between patient care and protecting society.
Oh,
Is there an important boundary
patient care and protecting society. I guess I'm not sure how to interpret that question.
there? I'm not either, so maybe
Okay.
we'll move on.
I was gonna say, if you have an interpretation,
Well, I know the
um,
person who submitted it. He's got very strong views on this, but I'll maybe let him clarify later. Um,
okay. I'm gonna say we could talk about like psychosis if that's kind of the direction that they're
yeah,
going.
I don't think that's it. Uh, anyway, uh, okay. Therapists. Oh well, this is a little bit of a follow up to that, but I still don't understand it. Therapists are obligated to warn and report in certain
Mm-hmm.
instances.
Mm-hmm.
Should Could UAP issues possibly fall under that regime?
Okay. Okay. So, I will answer to say yes, all therapists are mandated reporters, which means we report if there's been any child abuse, elder abuse, and then we have a duty to warn if somebody is in imminent danger or if somebody is going to, hurt themselves. And those laws do differ state by state. In Maryland, there is no statute of limitations, meaning if somebody reports to me that they had been assaulted in childhood, that would still be reportable. Um, as far as reportable for UAPs, uh, if regardless of why someone is coming to see me, if they're again falling to that category of a danger to themselves or others, then yes. But I'm also reading, maybe the question if is there a danger to society, I suppose? Like, do we, is,
Um, he is himself an experiencer, so
mm-hmm,
maybe
mm-hmm.
he has his own interpretation of the dangers are. Uh,
Sure, yeah.
um, okay. See, we already covered how you got interested in working with experiencers. Okay. Do any professional programs exist to train therapists who work with experiencers?
That's also a great question. Not enough. There is that I know of right now, there's one person that is offering training on this topic, and I can give you his information scale. No, that there isn't. This is really kind of a new frontier, and um, it's still very much being shaped as much as understanding what the phenomenon is altogether.
So, if there was someone with a similar background and training to yourself who wanted to get involved, what would you recommend they do?
Um, Read Jacques Vallée, John Mack, Diana Pasulka, um, the see Cosmosis Apple TV show or podcast. Like, do some self-study.
Mhm.
And I would assume at this point, if somebody's looking to do mental health support, that they would have the credentials at that point. But be comfortable working with trauma, because the symptoms of experiencers and the symptoms of survivors are, like I said, that they do overlap. And also be prepared to question your own ontology. Be prepared to really get deep with yourself and uh, understand that your own worldview might be questioned when you start to work with people um, who are sharing
Mhm.
the strange, because I
Okay.
think, can be destabilizing, even for seasoned mental health practitioners to work at this level.
Okay. Uh, that's a good answer. Okay. You already talked about this a little bit. Techniques and tools you use.
Mhm.
You talked about breath work, somatic work. talk therapy.
Hmm.
It's quite a list.
Yeah.
I think maybe you've already addressed that. Uh,
Ever be on the horizon? Oh, are we frozen? Okay. I seem to have a Zoom problem. Oh, I'm not frozen. Okay. Well, hello everyone. This is my cat Peaches. No, Paul, I cannot hear you. Okay, you can hear me. Yes, I am still here. Um, Technical issues. I don't know, there's something to be said about anomalous experience and technical issues. Okay, Paul's gonna try exiting and re-entering. Um, in the meantime, Hi, Paul. Can you hear me? I can hear you. Okay. All right. So I still can't hear you, but all right, let's see. I am going to turn on my video and I'm just going to hang out with you guys. I cannot see the chat if um I hope that anybody that's watching knows that they're not alone. Weird experiences are happening and they have been happening since beginning of human time. And okay, my mother is texting me. She's telling me that people are saying hi. So hello, everyone. Um, I could talk a little bit about different things that people might see as experiencers. I can't give any specific case information. Um, that would breach confidentiality, but people might see anything ranging from orbs of light to actual beings. People might have experiences of uh, having the classic being experimented on. Um, but I also work with folks that see, I guess, what we would consider ghosts, or certain energies, um, that there's really kind of something to be said about like what Paul was talking about. It's interesting to see that some people will get a shotgun to protect themselves, and some people will start praying. And it does kind of beg the question, is this a physical thing that's happening, or is this just something that's happening within the mind? So there is the hard problem of consciousness. Um, and this comes from philosopher David Chalmers, who asks, why do physical processes in the brain produce conscious experience? Why do we have awareness at all? What is the subjective aspect of experience? Kind of like the wetness of water. It comes from a German biologist who explored the edge of a biological organism's evolution. Um, and a good example of that is a tick. Uh, a tick they don't
Test,
have
test.
eyes. Oh, here we go. Are we back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, all right. Hi, Paul. Sorry. I did a little riffing. I hope that was
Yeah,
okay.
no, hopefully I think the audience heard that. And I appreciate it. And keep going. Um,
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
talking
still
about the
working on my
umvelt.
getting my camera set up properly.
Okay. Okay.
That's what the problem was, if anybody cares.
Ah. Um, yeah, the umvelt. So, the umvelt is the idea that like a tick, those nasty little buggers, they cannot they don't have eyes, they don't have ears, but they don't need them for their job. They haven't evolved to need those types of senses. Well, that doesn't mean that a sunset doesn't exist or that music isn't real. It just means that a tick has not evolved to perceive those things. And humans also have an umvelt. We also have an edge to our evolution. Humans can only see between what 400 and 700 nanometers, like so what we call visible light. So that's about 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So we can't see infrared, we can't see radio waves, X-rays, gamma rays. So the question of, is this real or not real? Is this happening within physical reality? Is it happening mentally? We don't know. Um, and I do encourage folks to maybe loosen a little bit of their idea of what reality is. Is it something that we can perceive beyond the five senses?
Okay. Yeah, that was great.
Okay.
They did actually hear that. They didn't see much of it, but they heard it. Um, yeah, I got a number of comments in the chat. Um, Folks, do you have any questions for Rachel? Come on. Obviously, she can't talk about specific cases. Well, that would be juicy, but um,
I do have permission from one person I was working with that gave me permission to talk about his case if you're interested.
yeah,
Do we want to go there? Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, okay. Uh, yeah. If there's any details you have to leave out, that's fine. But
Sure, sure. This is someone who has experienced beings that are coming to his house, and it's never when he's awake. And this is also something that's happening too, is that these experiences are usually happening when someone is in like theta brainwaves or alpha. So we have beta, alpha, theta, and delta brainwaves.
mhm.
And we are in, most of the time, we are in beta and alpha. This is when so beta is when we're awake, we're paying attention, we're focused. Alpha is when we're starting to become a little bit like if you're doom scrolling, you're just kind of caught and like lost in the sauce. And then theta, we are in twice a day. So we're in when we wake up, right before we wake up in the morning, and then right before we go to bed, and then delta waves are sleeping. So this is something too that when I do work with experiencers, is we are working with something called a state-dependent reality. And so that is how I can help folks put together some pieces of what they have experienced is by putting them in a similar brainwave state as they were at the time of the encounter. For this person, the thing that he is specifically encountering is, I don't know if everybody's familiar with the term hybrid, and they are um, a form of the grays that are coming and uh, he's one of the folks that has like numerous experiences, everything from being part of the breeding program to encountering hybrids that are asking for information on how human, like what is in his fridge. Why do you put the things in the fridge that you put in the fridge? Why do you put the things in the cupboard that you put in? And so it's almost like a lesson. It's a form of education that they are asking of him.
Hmm. Now, when you say he experiences this when he's almost awake, almost asleep, or almost awake.
Yeah, so he would be in like a theta wave state.
How does that differ from? I'm way outside my area of expertise there. How does that differ from a hypnopompic or hypnagogic trance?
Well, it doesn't really. I mean, there's a that is also why. So one thing I'm working on is Dolores Cannon's quantum healing hypnosis training,
Mm-hmm.
um, which helps people recover experiences. So that's the work, is that state of between sleeping and waking, and that's usually, for a lot of people that is the state, and that's why they do struggle with memory
Mm-hmm.
and missing time.
Right. I remember. Well, one experience I've had, which I've shared before, is that this was in the '80s. I was living in New Jersey, and I was living alone at the time, and I woke up and I was sure there was somebody standing on my bed,
Mm.
somebody small.
Mhm.
Didn't have children, so it wasn't at the time, so it wasn't a child. And the I found it absolutely terrifying, and I couldn't
Sure.
I couldn't but I couldn't yell or
Mhm.
move. And then I went back to sleep, which
Mhm.
is not what you'd expect if you're terrified. And then I woke up, some hours later, and I remembered it quite well. But I thought there was somebody in here.
Yeah.
And then later on, I heard about sleep sleep
Sleep
paralysis,
paralysis. Mhm.
and I thought, well, that's exactly what it felt like. And so I was convinced that it was actually somebody in my room standing on my bed. What I saw was a small pair of what looked like shiny boots and
Mm.
some small legs. I didn't see the face or body, it just those legs, and could have been somebody like a 6-year-old child. That's that size, and so I'm quite convinced that was sleep paralysis, but and that only ever happened to me one time. Um, but if there was a brief period of a few days when I wondered if that had been an abduction experience.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. I mean, where does it feel like you've landed with it? And what would it mean if you landed that you had it?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Maybe I need to turn my volume up.
Oh, sure. I had asked, you said that there had been a brief period where you thought it may have been an abduction experience.
There
And
was a brief one because that was just in the '80s when all the all the that was sort of in the air,
Mhm.
uh, and I was on Paranet a lot, uh, which is something that preceded the internet, and I got into discussions with people. Sometimes we just talk on the phone about experiences like that, and I had read some of the books, and but those experiences that are described in the books are very different from what I had experienced. But the common element was feeling terrified and feeling
Sure.
powerless and feeling paralyzed and not even being able to yell or scream.
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
uh, and but it's not. It doesn't feel like a dream because it feels too real. Um, and so and a lot of people, and I found out since then, a lot of people have had similar experiences. I mean,
Mhm.
a lot. They're pretty well documented. Um, so when I hear about that, that would be the first thing. Would be my go-to hypothesis would be a sleep paralysis experience. But now,
Mhm.
if he's having conversations with these beings, or they're asking him questions, that goes way beyond anything I've experienced.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I defer judgment on that. In fact, I would say one thing I've learned about dealing with these folks is don't judge, uh,
Right.
don't assume that they're crazy or that they're experiencing some kind of mental illness. Just listen,
Mhm.
and we may never know what it was, but um, the most important thing is their well-being and not finding out. Um, I'd love to find out, but
Mhm.
I probably never will. And you get used to that after a while. Of and you're in this when the kind of research we do, you get used to the notion that okay, I'm never really going to know what that was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even
Yeah.
in the one close encounter that I've had, I'm pretty well at peace with the notion that I'm never going to know what it was, and I'm
Mhm.
never going to know why I experienced it. I just, it just happened. Um, I'm confident it did happen, but
Mhm.
I will never know what it was. If I ever get some more enlightenment on that, wonderful, but I'm not expecting it.
Yeah.
Um, and I won't be damaged if I don't. You know,
Okay. Okay.
You know,
I mean, that is really such a big question. Is what is it? What meaning are we making out of it? Is this something that we need to be afraid of? I think all of those questions come up.
yeah, and I've heard a lot of a spectrum of feelings about that. You know,
Mhm.
some people think this is something terrible and frightening, uh, and others this is great and wonderful, and others
Mhm.
just curiosity, just I don't know what it was. Um, and we've had people report even closer encounters than mine, um, who seem to be fine with it.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
don't they don't have they don't have any um, trauma at all. Um, and I didn't have any trauma when I in my close encounter, which was very brief. It was about a minute.
Mhm.
Um, and there's other people I've spoken to who they had their they had close encounters that did not bother them, but they had other experiences that did. Um, and the the people you've been working with so far, do they report a variety of experiences?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
Not
variety of
just one thing that happened, but many things over a long time.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, and this is something we're also seeing within the research is that there, not every people have
Hmm.
more than one experience, and it ranges, like I was saying, anything from seeing glowing orbs to beings they're interacting with to, gosh, like things, especially in childhood, people, there's patterns I'm seeing of people that have imaginary friends, people that have near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences. And so that's why I'm so interested in studying consciousness because, back to sleep paralysis, like, what is sleep paralysis? Is that just your brain that's producing the image? Where is that coming from? Why is it doing that? Uh, so I think that the further and deeper you go, the deeper the
Hmm.
rabbit hole goes as well.
Right. Yeah. A lot of the stuff isn't very well understood. I remember when I was living in New Jersey, a friend's little daughter, uh, a very bright, creative little girl, uh, very articulate at a very young age. She had, she was seeing little people all the time around her.
Hmm.
I think that stopped after a certain age, but she was constantly reporting the little people she was talking to, um, and was and when she got more like school age, that's she wasn't seeing them anymore. But
Hmm.
at that age, you kind of live in a fantasy world, an imaginary world, and then to some children, it seems extremely real, just as real
Sure,
as the real world.
sure, sure.
Um, and I just wonder if so the brain can do that,
Brain can do
but we
that.
tend to lose it. That, and I remember as a child living kind of a fantasy world, most not all the time, but most of the time, um, and we kind of lose that capability. Maybe some of us don't entirely lose it. Uh,
Hmm.
I'm just speculating.
No,
Um,
yeah, I think that's fair
no,
speculation.
um, oh, here's a question, and it's a deep one, and hopefully you can
Okay.
elucidate. How do you treat the spiritual element of experiences?
The spiritual element. Sure. Yeah. So I use a couple different, I'm pulling from a couple different methodologies. So it's mixed methods. We're looking at existential. So those questions about what happens after death, what gives life meaning, and also pulling from transpersonal psychology. So this is beyond the ego. Um, and also some Jungian, like Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who came up with the idea of the collective unconscious. So the spiritual component is going to be very personal for each person.
Hmm.
So I'm going to be working within their already constructed worldview or belief system. And then we're doing an integration to say, okay, well, how can we make sense out of um, what happened in a way that doesn't necessarily ask someone to abandon their belief system, but potentially expand. So that's I think it's hard to say because it's going to be deeply personal for each
Right.
client.
I understand. Yeah. Um, any other questions, folks? There's. Um, I don't understand everything in the chat here. Let's see. Um, anybody else? Because I would love to hear some. I've always wanted this live stream to be as audience driven as possible.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, not my questions, not my thoughts, so as much as theirs. Um, which is why I solicited questions in advance. I did have one other. I don't. It's in an email. I bring it up here. Uh, no, that's not it. Um, you've already talked about the fact that you're a licensed practitioner. Uh, and your training and your interest working with experiencers is based. So yeah, I think you probably answered his question. Uh, so and hopefully he'll watch this video uh, after
Oh no.
after the live stream. Um, yeah. So okay, I guess I'll ask what maybe the last question unless somebody else wants to chime in. Um, oh, there's another one. Um, do you ever share your personal beliefs about others' experiences?
Hmm. Um, I what I offer folks is maps. Um, and what I mean by that is I will offer different authors that have done explorations of the field of consciousness so that they can help expand their own map. I don't know if you're familiar with like the Monroe Institute or the Institute of Noetic Science. And um, when we think about the hard problem of consciousness, the two schools of thought
Mm-hmm.
on one hand is that consciousness is produced by the brain. So it's something that we are aware and awake because of our brain. And then another thought is that the brain is not a producer of consciousness, but it's a receiver. And so more like a radio that receives information, that consciousness exists within the field. And there's all these interesting theories about like panpsychism and, quantum physics and, can science prove that the universe is potentially conscious? And so it's all very fascinating. And so what I offer people is not necessarily my own personal belief, rather it is a what do different disciplines say about this experience? And there are different viewpoints, and there's also a lot of similarities between the different disciplines. So I offer people kind of a charcuterie board to say, well, what about this? Or how does this make sense? And we do, it's collaborative.
Okay. Well, you've already talked about some of the books you recommend. Do you have other book recommendations to explore the area of consciousness?
On consciousness.
Yeah.
Let's see what's coming to mind right now. Um, I am blanking. I do apologize. I would check out the Institute of Noetic Science, would be a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
And then Dean Radin's work is really fascinating. He's a chief scientist there, Um, so that would be a starting point. Is anything by Dean Radin?
Okay. Um, so I guess what I wanted to ask you, and just you've already talked about this to some extent, but sort of to sum it up, um, when someone has an experience and they feel alone, they feel nobody else understands them, and people think they're crazy. Where should they start? What positive steps would you recommend?
Um, I would recommend, I mean, folks like you, Paul, like that are doing this work, like to seek out support from people that are open and curious.
Mm-hmm.
So, with the domestic and sexual violence background, one of the first things we're trained in is crisis work is that when people experience something traumatic, is what they need is somebody to believe them. So I would encourage people to go into spaces where they're going to be able to talk about their experiences. Um, there's also the is Opus, which is the Organization for Paranormal Understanding. There's MUFON, and there is an organization called Unhidden. It's Un and then NHI Hidden, and I would recommend. They are a team of clinical psychologists and medical doctors that are looking to do, and not looking to do, but are doing advocacy work surrounding legislation, pushing for disclosure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's I don't know if did you mention Dolores Cannon? I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay. Um, oh, here's another. Oh, well, I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this question, but regarding the story about the bees asking about kitchen items, why were they asking the experiencer about that?
Um, well, that is a good question. There's different theories on the why. There's different theories on the what and there's theories on the why. And one of the theories on the why is the idea that um, these beings might become more of a present part of the human experience,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that there might be a integration sometime in the future. That one of the theories is we can talk about like are these beings interterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial, interdimensional, like what is it, where are they coming from? And one of the theories with the Greys is that they are future humans or a form of something that was similar to a human that in their own reality, there was like some type of cataclysmic event or something happened in a way that they couldn't live there anymore, and so that's why they have appeared here, and that they are or that they're unable to procreate, and that's why they do abductions, and that's all of the information on like the breeding program. Dr. Mack does a really good job of covering people that have those experiences. Um, so to answer the question is I don't know for sure.
Yeah,
I
that's a
but
fair answer.
I don't
Uh,
know. I think it could be for many different reasons that are really kind of beyond our understanding right now. So,
yeah, I always tell people that I can't even deal with the why questions until I've answered the
mm,
what questions,
sure,
and
sure.
I haven't answered the what questions. Um, so now there is somebody in the chat who's raised something that I think is important. I don't think he's being hostile. I think he's serious. The false memories,
Mm,
Elizabeth Loftus, and uh, who's done. I don't think Elizabeth Loftus has done any work on paranormal experiencers, but she's mostly done, but she has done work on sexual abuse survivors and so forth. And also people who remember that as a result of recovered memories, but turns out that didn't happen.
Sure.
Do you ever come across a situation where you feel you should consider a false memory as a problem?
I know that like hypnosis and that type of work is pretty controversial. And I can say I have not had that experience where I've come across someone with a false memory. Um, and I would also not be able to determine if it was a false memory or not.
Right.
You know,
That's tricky.
right,
I mean,
right.
the experimental work has been, they induce what they know is a false memory, right?
Mm,
And then they see if people take up that false memory, and some of them do, right? I mean, but to do ethical psychological research like that, it can't be a very traumatic memory. It can only be like a simple memory, like and that's what Loftus has done a lot of work on, and she's also testified in a lot of trials.
yeah, yeah.
Because people are convicted often on eyewitness testimony, and then
Well, we're not convicting any of the
yeah,
aliens, so I think we're gonna be okay.
and right, so it never comes down to the to a court case.
No, it wouldn't know. And
Yeah,
in my work, I believe if someone's brain is showing them something, then that thing is something worth exploring. Like your brain is telling you something, let's look at it, but we're not just looking at the event, we're also looking at underneath, like what were the
right,
emotions that came up? What were
right.
the, yeah,
So you're dealing with basically whether the event happened as they remember it exactly is not the most important thing.
right. It's not.
Um,
Mm-mm.
okay, folks. Any other questions? I think we've kept you here for over an hour.
Oh yeah, yeah, we did good.
Um, and it's been great.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
I apologize for the technical hiccup, but Rachel covered that beautifully. Going once, going twice. Okay. Thanks for all your questions. And thanks to the people who ask questions offline too, who aren't here at the moment, but you can watch this video later on YouTube. We're going to leave it up indefinitely. Thank you, Rachel, so much. And I will put links in the description how you can get Rachel's Psychology Today profile, and through that you can get in touch with her if you want her to, if you want to talk to Rachel about your own situation. And of course, that's none of my business, but if you do, then by all means, do that. And I hopefully will run into you again soon, Rachel, and talk about some more of this interesting stuff. And I will continue to refer people who are interested in talking about their experiences to you. A lot of people in the chat are saying thank you.
Oh, good. You're welcome. You're welcome. I know that this topic can feel exciting, but can also feel scary. So ultimately, I just want to remind people that a hopeful place to land is with curiosity.
Right. Right. And I want people to know that, just like Rachel, if you come to me with your case, I will not judge you, and I'll not think you're crazy. And if it turns out you need help with that, dealing with the emotional or personal aspect of it, that's not my wheelhouse, but it is Rachel's. So, and there are other people, perhaps if you're not in Maryland, you're somewhere else, we can find you someone who can help you, and you can go talk to. So, don't be afraid to reach out. And we, of course, would never reveal your identity or any of your personal information. So by all means, reach out to us. You can reach me, if you want to report an experience to me, reportaufo.org. You can also email us, reportaufo@protonmail.com. And like I said, Rachel's information will be in the description of this video very shortly after it's published. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and thank you, Rachel. And we're going to end the stream now. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And hey, Rachel, thanks a lot. I'm going to end the meeting now.
Okay.
Sorry to
I
keep
hope I did okay. No,
you did great. Actually, when the Zoom meeting went down, you stayed on and kept them entertained for a while. So, yeah, that was great. Appreciate it. And I'm going to say goodnight now.
Okay.
Night.
Good night.
Okay. Well, that went well, I think. She's a bit of a new age woo-woo person.